There are times in life when we believe everything is over. After losing a job, losing a loved one, losing faith in ourselves, we feel buried beneath the ashes of fate. Nothing left to hold on to. Nothing left to start again. But perhaps, ashes are not the end, they're fertile ground for something new. We are not what we've lost. We are what remains, and what's ready to rise. Today, you'll hear 10 true stories about people who seemed broken beyond repair, but they stood up, they were reborn, and they began living a deeper, richer life, both in their soul and in their livelihood. You may see yourself in them, and who knows, maybe today marks the beginning of your own rebirth. 4-Leaf Clover Story 1. The woman who lost her entire family and found rebirth in a garden. She used to be an office worker. She lived with her husband and 2 young sons. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was full of laughter. Then came the accident. A drunk driver. Her husband and both sons never came home. She was the only one who survived. Each morning she woke up, not knowing why she still existed. No one to cook for. No one to hold. Every night, tears. Every day, emptiness. People told her, time will heal you. But time didn't heal the pain. It only taught her how to carry it. One day, she did something small. She walked to the back of her house, where her husband and sons once planted vegetables, and dug into the old soil. She planted a few mustard greens, not to eat, but simply to do something with their memory. Each day, she watered the soil in silence, no expectations. And then, tiny green sprouts began to grow. For the first time in months, she smiled, a faint smile, but real. She began to learn gardening, read books, watch videos. Each plant became a quiet remedy. Each harvest, a flicker of light in a frozen heart. Eventually, she started a small online shop, selling clean, homegrown vegetables to neighbors. People would ask, "Why does your produce taste so fresh?" She would reply, "Because I grow it with tears and love." 3 years later, her little garden had become an urban farm. She hired other single mothers, those who had lost loved ones, and together, they grew food and healing. No one imagined that a woman who lost everything could rebuild her life from a handful of mustard seeds. But sometimes, miracles don't come from grand plans. They come from the moment we dare to plant again, even when our heart is in ruins. Sparkle's lesson: no one restarts their life with something big. They begin with small things. A seed, a corner cleaned, a journal entry. If you're in your darkest days, remember, no one is strong from the start, but anyone can be reborn if they dare to plant life again. Luck doesn't come to those who cry. It comes to those who take one small step forward. 4-Leaf Clover Story 2. The man who lost everything at 50 and found magic in a bowl of noodles. He was once the director of a construction firm. 3 cars, a house in the city, and a reputation for turning everything he touched to gold. People called him the man with the Midas touch. Then came the collapse. A failed business deal dragged him into massive debt. Friends vanished. His family fell apart. At 50, all he had left was a rusty motorbike. No job, no money, no one to lean on. He considered ending it all. One cold night, digging through a dusty drawer in his rented room, he found an old, smudged recipe, his mother's handwritten instructions for making Hugh beef noodle soup. Suddenly, he cried, not for the recipe, but for the memory of mornings by the red glowing coal stove, his mother's sweat dripping into the broth, her gentle eyes watching him slurp the last bite. He whispered to himself, "If I've lost everything, why not begin again with something simple that once made me feel alive?" He borrowed 5 million Vietnamese dongs from the only friend who still believed in him. At 4 a.m., he rose to simmer bones and season the broth, then biked out to sell in front of an industrial park. People called him the strange noodle man, wearing a worn dress shirt, but cooking like home. After a month, word began to spread. 6 months later, he opened a tiny restaurant. A year later, there were lines out the door. After 3 years, he had 3 branches and dozens of employees, many of whom had once lost their jobs too. When asked, "How did you rise again from the ashes?" He simply said, "I didn't rise to succeed. I rose because I missed my mother. And because of one bowl of soup. That reminded me I was still alive." Sparkle's lesson. Sometimes, rebirth doesn't start with the perfect business plan or a big opportunity. It starts with a quiet memory of something that once gave your life meaning. When we live again in love, even the ashes can bloom into miracles. Luck doesn't arrive out of nowhere. It comes when we dare to revisit a memory and start again with our whole heart. Story 3. The woman who survived cancer and became a soul-healing author. She used to be an ordinary office worker, living a quiet, weary, and resigned life. Each day felt like a lifeless copy of the last morning coffee. Instant noodles for lunch, scrolling through her phone at night. Until one day, the doctor called her in and said simply, "Stage 2 breast cancer. We need to operate as soon as possible." She froze, not out of fear of death, but because she realized she had never truly lived. She couldn't remember the last time she laughed wholeheartedly, or held someone's hand and felt warmth, or did anything for herself, outside of obligation. For the first time in years, she sat in a small garden, closed her eyes, and asked, "If I only had 1 year left to live, what would I do differently?" There was no answer, only the wind, and a single tear rolling down her cheek. She decided to postpone the surgery for just 1 week, to take a trip back to the Central Highlands. To the village where her grandmother once lived, to the old mossy tiled house, to the scent of incense, and the lullabies that echoed in summer afternoons. Each day, she wrote in her journal, about pain, about fear, about the quiet beauty of a wildflower blooming by the roadside. She wrote as if she'd never written before. She wrote, like it was her way back to life. The surgery went well, but something even more miraculous happened. 6 months into treatment, she published a book titled, "Because I Once Fell into Darkness." The book wasn't praised for its eloquence, but for its honesty, and because thousands of women who were lost saw themselves in her story. 5 years later, she had become a healing author, a speaker at meditation retreats, and co-founder of a mental wellness center for cancer patients. When asked what saved her from the depths, she replied, "Not the medicine, not the doctors, but the moment I dared to pause and live honestly." For the first time, Sparkle's lesson. Some pains feel like they'll destroy us, but maybe they're only destroying the false version of us, so the real self can be reborn. Luck isn't being cured. Luck is choosing to live, as if every moment matters. When we live authentically, even the darkness can become the beginning of light. Fire Story 4. From Prisoner to Purpose, a man's journey of redemption. He once sat behind prison bars for 5 years, for crimes involving violence and theft. No one asked why he did it. No one cared that behind those bars was a child raised on screaming voices, swinging hands, and dinners full of tears. He was released at age 31, with nothing but an old backpack, and a criminal record thick enough to close every door in his face. Then one rainy afternoon, he asked for work at a small food stall in a poor neighborhood, owned by an elderly woman. She didn't ask about his past. She didn't judge. She simply said, "Just work with heart. The rest, leave it to the heavens." He worked quietly, tirelessly, no days off. When business was slow, he washed dishes. When it got busy, he cleaned tables, served food, scrubbed floors. The old lady noticed. She taught him how to cook Boon Ryu, how to manage money, how to keep a logbook. A year later, she handed him the stall. She was too old to continue. His hands trembled as he accepted it, saying, "But I'm someone with a criminal past." She smiled. "And I was once a child abandoned by my own father. But I never let the past define who I am." He started reading, learning about business. He wrote down everything she taught him, then began filming short videos about his journey of rebirth. 3 years later, he owns 2 small food shops and runs a YouTube channel helping others who've stumbled in life to stand up again. No noise, no ego. He simply responds to comments with, "We all deserve a better life, even after our worst mistakes." Sparkle's lesson. No one is born to be bad. Many just never had someone believe in them. Luck is sometimes simply meeting someone who believes we can change. But the true miracle happens when we believe it too, and choose to walk forward with kindness and pass it on. No matter how dark your past, you can begin again, as long as your heart still longs to do good. Sparkle's story 5. A single mother who lost everything and started again with just a pen. She used to be an ordinary accountant, with a husband, a child, and a small house, until one day, her husband left for another woman, leaving behind a mountain of debt and a feverish child in her arms. She lost her job, lost her home, lost her faith in people. She once sat at a clinic at midnight, holding her sick child, not knowing how they'd eat the next day. Her mind was in chaos. To soothe herself, she started writing in a journal. Each word felt like a tear falling on the page. Then one day, she read it all again, and realized something had changed. There was no more blame, no more self-pity, only a mother, learning to rise, learning to forgive, and learning to retell her story in a different voice. She decided to post her journal entries on a forum for single moms. Unexpectedly, her heartfelt writing touched thousands. One day, a publisher reached out, and after months of editing, her first book was born. Its title, I Came Back to Life. A memoir of rising from rock bottom, from a mother who once lost everything, to a woman who now stood strong, free, and full of hope. She didn't become a millionaire, but the book helped her repay her debts, send her child to school, and gave her the chance to stand on stage and say, "Never think it's too late to begin again." Sometimes, all you need is a pen and a heart that refuses to give up. Bullseye life lesson. Not everyone begins with a perfect life, but everyone has the right to rewrite their own story. Luck isn't waiting for something to arrive. It's choosing to live, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Sometimes life burns everything down, but if you still hold on to even a tiny spark in your heart, that is luck. If you've listened this far, perhaps you've also had your moments of exhaustion, moments where you asked yourself, can I really get back up? Or maybe you simply felt the pain in these stories because you've been there too. If that's true, thank you for staying. These stories are not just for listening. They are reminders. We don't have to be perfect to keep going. We just have to keep showing up with a sincere heart. If you see yourself in these words, or know someone who might need a bit of light today, please share this video with them. It might be a quiet gift, but exactly what they need right now. And if you'd like to walk beside more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so that each week, there's a gentle voice waiting to remind you, you are never alone. Now, let's move on to the next story.
Story 6. From homeless man to business owner, creating jobs for over 200 people. The story of Khalil Rifati. Some people, when they hit rock bottom, they're left with only two choices: die or be reborn. Khalil Rifati once wandered the streets of Los Angeles, homeless, friendless, hopeless. His body was skin and bones, barely 50 kilograms, covered in scars and needle marks. He said, I had nothing left to lose. I had already died inside, long ago. Then one day, after another overdose, he woke up in a hospital, and a nurse was gently pressing her hand on his chest, whispering, "You're still alive, which means God hasn't given up on you." That moment hit him like a bell ringing in the void. It was a wake-up call. Khalil made a decision. He entered rehab, got clean, and started over, from cleaning floors at a small yoga center. He learned about nutrition. He studied juices. He rebuilt his life, one healthy habit at a time. Eventually, the juices that helped him survive became the beginning of a brand. Sun Life Organics. No flashy marketing. No big campaigns. Just one mission. Hire those who were once forgotten, addicts, homeless, the outcast. He gave them jobs. He gave them trust. And slowly, that small juice bar grew across America. Today, Khalil is a millionaire. But that's not what he's most proud of. What moves him is the hundreds of people who have come back to life. Because someone believed in them when no one else did. I was once the man no one would hire. Now, I get to hire the people the world has left behind. Bullseye life lesson. Luck isn't something you're given, it's something you create. And when you use it to lift others, that luck becomes a miracle not just for you, but for the world. Sparkle's story 7. Reborn from depression, she became a healer of millions. Some pains you can't see with the naked eye. They hide in long, sleepless nights, in mornings you dread to wake up to, and in the question that seems simple, yet echoes endlessly in the soul. Why am I even alive? She once had it all. A dream job, a great income, friends who admired her, but inside was a hollow silence no one could hear. Depression didn't crash in like a storm. It came slowly, like soft rain soaking into dry soil, until everything began to erode. There were days she lay on the floor, unable to move, no shower, no words, no interest in living. She once wrote in her journal, "I don't want to die, but I no longer know why I should live." Then one day, in a moment when she was about to end it all, she opened an old notebook. Inside, there was a letter from her mother, written long ago. "If you can't believe in yourself anymore, then believe in the love I have for you." That moment wasn't a grand rescue, but it was the first ray of light through the darkness. She began to read, to go to therapy, to meditate, to write, from the very place where she used to hurt. From broken pieces, she began writing books. From her pain, she crafted words that healed. Her gentle stories, about slowing down, letting go, and learning to love, spread across mental health forums. They became a soft place to land, for hearts that had nowhere else to go. She once wanted to end it all. Now, she receives hundreds of messages each day. "Because of you, I chose to live. You are the reason I made it to tomorrow." Bullseye life lesson. Luck isn't always a lottery win. Sometimes, it's a letter from someone who still believes in you. A few words, a faded notebook, a love that reminds you, you are not broken beyond repair. Because pain doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning of a more meaningful, more beautiful journey. If you're going through a time when nothing makes sense, if you've ever felt like no one truly understands you, please leave a comment below. This might be the place where you begin again. Or maybe, simply the place where you remember. Sparkles, you are not alone. Story 8. From scrap boy to scientist, William Kamkwamba. In a poor village in Malawi, Africa, where electricity had never arrived, and clean water was a distant dream, lived a 14-year-old boy named William. He didn't have enough money to stay in school, but every day, William walked to the library, hoping to read second-hand books, written in English he barely understood. One day, he saw a sketch of a wind turbine in an old science book. Just a technical drawing, dry lines and confusing words. But in that lifeless page, the boy saw a dream of lighting up his village. With nothing in his hands, he started collecting what others threw away. A broken fan, an old bicycle, some scraps of wood. For months, under the scorching sun, and the mocking laughter of others, he worked, until one day, the blades spun with the wind. And then, light appeared in the first home. William didn't stop there. He taught himself how to build water pumps. He saved the farmlands from drought. The villagers began to call him the boy who harnessed the wind. His story spread across continents, reaching all the way to the United States. Eventually, William received a full scholarship, became an engineer, a global speaker, and the author of a best-selling memoir, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. From picking trash, he became a symbol of hope. And it all started with one book page. one idea, and one belief. If no one helps me, I will become the one who creates opportunity. Bullseye life lesson. Luck doesn't belong to the rich or the poor. It belongs to those who dare to learn and dare to act. You may not have the best starting point. You may have been rejected, laughed at, or told you can't, but that doesn't define you. What defines you is your daily action, your refusal to give up, and your quiet belief that your life has meaning. So if today, you only have a book page, a vague idea, or a crazy little dream, Sparkles, remember, William started with that too. Cloud with Rain Story 9. The man who almost jumped, but became a global author. In San Francisco, beneath the iconic Golden Gate Bridge, many have come to end their pain, hoping the ocean would wash away their suffering. One morning, a young man stood there. His eyes were tired, his heart too heavy to carry alone. He had written a letter, pouring all the sorrow of a lifetime. To him, there was no reason left to go on. As he stood silently, only a few steps from the edge, a stranger approached. They didn't ask too much. They didn't offer advice. They just sat down and gently said, "I don't know what you're going through, but if you feel like crying, go ahead. I'll just sit here with you." No preaching, no fixing, just presence, just quiet kindness. At the exact moment it was needed. That day, the man chose not to jump. He turned back, and so began the journey of healing. Years passed. He found therapy. He began to write. He faced himself, not to run, but to understand. Today, he is known as Matt Haig, the best-selling author of books like Reasons to Stay Alive, which has helped millions deal with depression, anxiety, and despair. Matt once shared, "I didn't survive because I was stronger than others. I survived because someone was kind to me when I was at my weakest." Bullseye life lesson. Luck isn't always about winning the lottery. It's not about meeting a hero who will save your life. Sometimes, luck is someone who silently sits beside your pain. Someone who doesn't try to fix you, but simply stays. And above all, luck is when you choose to keep living, to begin healing, to make your pain meaningful. You don't have to be the sun. Even a small candle can light up someone's darkness. So if you're in a dark place now, if you've ever thought about giving up, Sparkles, please remember, maybe luck is coming, in the form of a stranger, a soft word, or even a story you're hearing right now. Railway track story 10. He lost nearly everything, but became a global symbol of strength. Some tragedies hit like lightning, shattering not just the body, but the soul. Some accidents make people believe, my life is over, but some rise and turn pain into purpose. It was May 2001. A young man from South Africa, Peter Dupreez, was on a cycling internship in Germany. Suddenly, a truck crashed into him from behind. His bicycle was crushed. His spine was severely injured. Doctors said, "You will never walk again." From a healthy, strong athlete, Peter became paralyzed from the neck down. Only his head and shoulders could move slightly. The world called it a tragedy. But luck didn't abandon him. Not the kind of luck that grows limbs back, but the kind that awakens something deep within. Through months of therapy, sweat, and silent tears, Peter learned to control a racing wheelchair. Using only his chin and shoulders, he began to race. He began to win. Then, he made history, becoming the first quadriplegic athlete to ever finish a full Ironman triathlon. Let that sink in. 3.8 kilometers of swimming, 180 kilometers of cycling, 42 kilometers of running, all with a body that could only move from the neck up. Peter once said, "People think I'm lucky to survive. But really, I'm lucky because I didn't give up. I chose to live in a way that inspires, not in a way that seeks pity." Today, Peter is not just an athlete. He's a global speaker, a social activist, and a living reminder that the human spirit has no limits. Bullseye life lesson. Luck isn't about what you have. It's about how you respond to what life takes from you. Some fall and stay down. Some fall and rise again, becoming the reason millions choose not to give up. We can't choose the storms, but we can choose who we become after the storm passes. And sometimes, from within the ashes, we rediscover the most precious thing of all, a purpose greater than ourselves. Glowing star final message. Luck doesn't come to those who wait, it comes to those who dare to keep going. Do you notice what all these stories have in common? None of them waited for a miracle. They hit rock bottom. They were rejected, broken, lost, but they didn't give up. They stood up with scarred feet. They moved forward with a heart still bleeding. And from the darkest corners of their lives, a boy who scavenged trash built a wind turbine. A homeless man built a legacy helping thousands. A man about to jump off a bridge became a global voice for mental health. A girl who lost everything found herself again in the smiles of others. Seedling, that's luck, but not the kind that falls from the sky. It's the kind you plant with courage, with kindness, with belief. Fire. So if you're tired today, don't ask, when will I be lucky? Ask instead, what seeds am I planting for goodness today? A small act of courage, a kind word no one notices, a quiet decision to not give up today. These are the seeds that may someday bloom into what others will call miracles. Rainbow. And if these stories touched something in your heart, speech balloon, leave a comment so we know you're walking this journey too. Outgoing male. If you've lived through your own storm and miracle, don't be afraid to share it. You never know, your story might be the light someone else is desperately searching for. Push pin. And if you believe in spreading positivity, hit subscribe, because the world needs more hearts to keep the fire of hope alive. Glowing star. Luck doesn't lie in your horoscope. It lives in how you choose to live. Not in fate, but in the actions you take every day. You don't have to wait for a miracle. You are the miracle when you choose to live with courage, honesty, and perseverance. Let's keep planting seeds together, seedling. Because someday, someone might say, I was lucky because I met someone like you.